Hello, and you're welcome to yet another edition of Clevenard Open Project discussion on clevenard.com/TV. My name is Frank Kalinde Media. Like always, Clevenard exists with a vision to bridge the walls of African tourism for the growth of the continent. So if you are yet to sign up with us, please do so on www.clevenard.com. Thank you. All right, today we'll be discussing business opportunities and the role of media, cultures, and tourism in the African diaspora market. And my guests are Dr. Bashir Olalekon Obashikola, who is the Continental Chairman, NIDO. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I also have Honorable Rizik Zakaria, all right, the Minister of Tourism, South Sudan. You're welcome to the program, Honorable.
Thank you very much, and I have the great pleasure of having me at this episode. Thank you.
All right, and lastly, I have Allenson Andrew, former Minister of Tourism, Siche. You're welcome to the program, Mr. Allen.
Thank you very much, Frank. Much appreciated, and thank you to be with this distinguished panel tonight.
All right, we already know we'll be discussing tourism in Africa. All right, like I'll start with the Honorable Minister. All right, I need you to please x-ray, all right, the African tourism sector in South Sudan. All right, outlining the challenges facing the sector in your country. Isaac, sir.
Thank you very much, and yes. Thank you very much. And also I have to acknowledge Cleveland TV for this great show, as well as I have to acknowledge the presence of the other guests, my colleagues, the other guests. Actually, it's our pleasure to be online today so that we share with you the overview about the tourism of South Sudan, as well as the promotional aspects and other challenges that we are facing. In fact, South Sudan is one of the global members of the African countries, and in our perspective, we consider ourselves to be the last one of the continent. And South Sudan is endowed with a lot of tourism prosperity and perspectives, as well as the opportunities are marvelous. Let me say, as for South Sudan, has a very, very congested cultural diversity, having 64 countries, 64 tribes, and those tribes are stretched along farmers, nomads, and even forest product collectors. Those are the existence of the tribes here in South Sudan. And also we have very marvelous historical sites. My new South Sudan, one day it was on the slave trade. You see, that is one of the historical sites that we have here in South Sudan, as well as when we talk about biodiversity. Here in South Sudan, we have a very rich environment. We have very rich biodiversity. Mind you, here in fact we have 18 protected areas, and those protected areas, they stand by 6 national parks and 12 game reserves. And each of them has maintained its own uniqueness. Let me say that each of them maintain its own uniqueness. And by the way, here, this is, I think, one of our privileges that we are still having. This white rhino is roaming. On top of this, we have, let me say it, one of the largest global migration. And our global migrations actually it holds 4 different species. Let me say, here in South Sudan, we have the white-eared cock, which is very unique, by the way, globally. We have the Chiang, we have the Mangala gazelle, and we have the redback. Those are the component of our migration here in the country, as well as here we have very indigenous and unique species. They are not seen in most of the global countries. Here, for instance, when I talk about the Nile lechui, which is very unique, it's a mammal that survives in the Nile. You see, that is one of the very unique species that we have in South Sudan, and I'm quite sure in Africa, if it's existing, it would be in 1 or 2 countries, not beyond that, as I know. Also, we have the Nile lechui. Apart from that, we have the shoebill. Shoebill, that is one of the birds. Also, it's one of our indigenous. Let me say in brief, South Sudan is endowed with a lot of marvelous resources. tourism opportunities, and right, South Sudan is one of the rightful tourism destination. But our stiff challenge, as everybody knows, now we are managing post-conflict tourism. As now we are just coming out of our conflicts. That is why our opportunities were not being properly promoted globally, properly promoted. But here we have the resources, we have the opportunities, and also we believe the continent now, Africa, is transforming its tourism toward the right direction. And here, on this, I believe on the African Tourism Board, as well as these promotional media like this Clevenard TV that it is hosting us today. This is one of the facilities that we thought it will help us in promoting and reflecting on our opportunities, in fact. And yeah, that is one of the aspects. And even this one will lead me to the challenge. You see, most of our stiff challenges that I'm quite sure most of the African countries are suffering from would be the issues of the negative advisory. Negative advisory, you see. And what is being reflected about us that South Sudan is areas of conflict, areas of insecurity, and so on and so forth. But in fact, these conflicts, it would be contained, it will be specified in specific areas. Not all the country is in conflict, you see. But the negative advisory portray us in a different features. Then that is our role now to change the narratives. Then on top of this, I believe on the regional blocks. Now we are members of the East African community. And through the East African communities now we are addressing many challenges. Let me put it in a nutshell. For us as African countries, we believe tourism is the only way forward. It would put an end to the suffering of the African communities and people. Then what is needed now? We should avoid avoid the competition among ourselves as African countries. We should avoid that one. We should join our hands to promote our global tourism as well as our regional blocks, so that we head towards the ultimate goal, which is prosperity for the entire population.
All right, Honorable. We'll actually get to recommendations, okay? We'll get back to that recommendations, which you were just trying to outline. But I just want us to talk more on the importance of developing the tourism sector in Africa. You've mentioned different destinations in Africa. Apart from South Sudan, every other African countries has one of these tourist destinations and attractions. But unfortunately, are we really making wise use of it? Are we doing more to make sure that we benefit from it gives to us? So I want us to talk on the importance of developing this sector first. And then, Dr. Bashila, I'll need you to come in there. What can be done to develop that sector? I know some African countries are doing a bit, but in your own view, what do you think can be done? Dr. Bashir, please. Hello, Dr. Bashir. I think your microphone is muted. You muted your microphone. Yeah. All right. Let me, Dr. Allen, I'll come back to you because I needed to give out the searches example. But let me come back to the Honorable. I think you should take that question for us. The importance of the sector, the importance of developing the tourism sector in Africa. Honorable, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think that was what I was trying to narrate actually in this juncture. In fact, in our countries, we thought we have a lot of economical challenges, and tourism, by the way, plays a very major role in developing and promoting the livelihood of the African people. Let me talk about South Sudan. In South Sudan, we have 18 protected areas, 6 national parks, and 12 game reserves. Those protected areas are scattered at the peripheries of the country. You just imagine how much will it save the ordinary citizen of the country. Then second to this, we have the migration. The migration also crossed very, very long distance. And all along the migration routes, there are people who would be benefiting out of that. You see, those are the aspects of promotions and development of our countries that we saw. Because in our personal perspectives, we saw that once we develop our tourism, it will contribute more than 50% of our gross domestic product.
Zara, thank you so much for that. And Dr. Alan said, Andrew, please. Oh, Dr. Bashir is back.
You want me?
Can you hear me now?
You want me to come,
Yes,
or you want Doctor?
I can hear you now. Thank you so much.
Yeah, please. I needed to add to what Dr. Angel, please hold on. I need Dr. Bashir to add to what the Honorable has just said, the importance of developing the tourism sector in Africa.
Yes, thank you very much. Tourism is always a potential that needs to be realized. You know, naturally, God creates the world with amazing places that people will wish to visit and amazed with what God has created by nature. So Africa is full of salt, but the problem is always how to commercialize it, how to make it a source of income for us. And of course, that involves a lot of economic input, which is infrastructure. So the infrastructure is the issue, which is a challenge, and I believe that if well announced and policy programs are put in place by government, those infrastructure could actually be part of also investment opportunities, whereby private businesses, foreign and diaspora and international, could be brought in to develop the infrastructure that could give us the opportunity to realize those potential, of the tourism as a source of income for us. So I believe that what the Honorable has said, Mr. has said, is something which, of course, requires consistency and policy programs of government to give encouragement to people, private and corporate bodies to come in.
It's all right.
Secure, they need to be guaranteed. Yeah. Okay. And they need to be able to, stand in for concessions and make sure they realize their money back by government giving them the guarantees that requires that inconsistency in government policy will not derail their businesses. So I believe that is the way to go.
Okay, Mr. Allen, you were once a minister, tourism minister in Seychelles, all right? And we've heard reports, I've seen videos, write-ups and all that about your success stories, all right? But somehow along the line, we are not seeing the same implementation in most African countries. Please share with us your success story. What exactly did you do right that put you guys on the limelights?
Okay, I think good evening, everybody. I think it is, I've listened with a lot of interest, the South Sudan minister. I think he's tabled the unique selling points of South Sudan, and it is clear, like every state of Africa, the 54 states of Africa, we have everything. But are we able to pitch ourselves to earn potential results from tourism? I think this is the question. When I looked at the discussion point for tonight, and I said to myself, is Africa reaping the benefits in full of what its tourism offers to the people of Africa? I think as a continent, we are blessed. We are very blessed. We have everything. If you talk about safari, if you talk about sea, sun, sand, if you talk about pyramids in Sudan, everything that we can think of, we have. But where do we fail? We must be failing because we have, as an average, about 6.8% of the world travelers of tourism landing in Africa. So we are failing badly. Some countries do better. Seychelles, as a small island state, does very well comparatively, but we are small. But we depend on tourism totally. If we do something wrong, the economy of the country is battered immediately. So we know that we have to ensure that tourism works and works well. But where does Africa as a continent? When you have a bad apple, the whole continent suffers. When you have something that is not working, the whole continent stops moving forward. I think the minister said something very good tonight. Tourism is what will take Africans out of poverty. Yes, he is right. But now we need the political will of the 54 states to say, we want to take each and every African out of poverty, and we want our tourism industry to work. I've said it before on your program, and I'll say it again, because you are partly a member of the press. Africa, as the minister spoke about, our challenges are being promoted in the world, but our unique selling points are not told. Our unique selling points, because this is positive news, it is not something that will spark an interest. Today, the last week, we only see Gaza and Israel on the news, because this is it's sensations that people look for.
Sensational.
We need to find our own narrative. We need to use somebody affiliated with Africa, like Cleveland. We need to be able to tell the world what we have, when we have. And the good points need to be put forward, which we are unable to do. I mean, today we are on the eve of a UNWTO election for Secretary General. Again, Africa is the body with the most votes, 10 votes. Is Africa rallying for Africa? No. We will support somebody else, but we forget that Africa depends on tourism to take each and every African out of its misery and poverty. Africa needs to wake up, sadly, and we need the African Union to take a leadership role to say, Africa, rise from the dust of Africa, roar like a lion, and make yourselves heard, so that we start reaping the benefits, the real benefits out of the tourism industry. That's what I wanted to say. I mean, the diaspora that you mentioned, it's great for Africa as a continent, because we are everywhere. When I was in office, I use our diaspora as tourism ambassadors, because where they are located, a Ministry of Tourism or a tourism board can never touch the little press that they have in their own villages and their own little towns. But our people there know these press people, so they are able to disseminate information. So we need to use the diaspora, not just use them, but recognize them, respect them, and treat them as we should treat a foreign ambassador, because that's what they are. You can take an African out of Africa, but you cannot take Africa out of the African. He remains an African. So if he remains an African, let us invite him to be part and parcel with us. Let us invite him to work with us, with our great continent, to move us forward and make us succeed. I think this is what we should be discussing. We can talk about our USPs until we are blue in the face, but the USPs will remain our best kept secrets until we are able to tell the world that we exist.
All right, you did mention about Africa waking up to bring out the best of African, and then you did mention the responsibility of the African Union in achieving this feat. All right, now apart from the AU, is there any other organizations, or are there any other stakeholders that are responsible, that should come together and make sure the best of Africa is brought to light?
You see, Frank, I think it is like a pyramid. The one on top today in Africa, on our continent, is the African Union. And then you have our respective governments. Under the respective government, we have our private sector trade, and then the people of Africa. But the private sector trade is guided a lot by the government of the day, who are, in one way, sitting on that body of the African Union. We need to work in a wholesome approach. We cannot just have a hotel to say, well, you forge ahead by yourself. He's only a little dot in that whole scheme of things. Tourism is not, and I repeat, because I am from the trade, I'm a hotel person by profession, and then did a sales and marketing diploma. A hotel is not a local tour operator. It's not an airline. Tourism is the country. The country must rise to be able to receive its clients. It's useless having a 5-star resort in what you can call a shanty town. It doesn't work. We have to get the whole country to believe in tourism, to move properly forward, to do roads, to have electricity, to have internet, to have all the needs for tourism then to prosper. And then they need security. They need a trained labor force. So otherwise you'll just have continued people working in your country. And then that kills to a degree the hospitality that you should be offering as an African establishment, because it dilutes your own culture. But we need then the government and the private sector to do the training. We must find in Africa a number of hotel schools that will train our people in tourism and hotel management, so that we have our people that are qualified. It's useless to say we have a workforce, but they are not trained. Tourism is just not an activity, it is an industry. If it's an industry, we must put all the effort behind it. And yes, it will lay the golden egg for each and every country. But we must believe in it, our money where our mouth is, and say, yes, we will work with tourism and make tourism succeed.
All right, tourism is a country. I love that. Dr. Bashir, do you have anything to add to what Mr. Allen just said?
Well, Mr. Allen has just, of course, also re-emphasized what I said earlier, that infrastructure is very important, because you cannot realize the potentials you have if you don't provide the enabling environment, which infrastructure is. Of course, we spoke about security, which is also part of this infrastructure, part of preparing for human resource with the right skills to be able to admit and serve tourists, properly. So I believe that he has said the right thing, and those are areas I think government should consistently pursue, because the problem as also in some African countries is, the zigzag policies that doesn't inconsistency in policies to promote those areas that are necessary for tourism to strive in Nigeria. The Asian countries or the Arab countries have shown us that consistency is what the government of those countries were able to achieve, and now everybody goes to Dubai and all those places, to just go and see the sand, the white sand and all those recreational areas, which Africa has a lot of similar or even better areas that could be developed for tourism to thrive. So I support what Mr. Allen is saying.
All right, Mr. Allen, when we were talking, you did mention of the role of the media. All right, about some media, especially let's say social media, practicing what you call sensational journalism in the first place, and the main stories such as tourism and others, which is supposed to develop a country, are not even brought to the limelight. Now, Clevenard has existed just for that particular ad, which is to help promote the world of tourism, all right, in Africa. But sadly, we are not having that, how do I put it now? We are not having that penetration. And I will try to penetrate, and then you still have problems from countries, from states, from even government officials and all that. In such a place when you are trying to make a difference and it looks like you are not really doing anything, what would you advise in that?
You see, what you are true, I feel sad. I feel sad as a citizen of our great continent of Africa. I feel sad because we are not using the avenues that we can use to pitch what we have on the international market. We keep playing sometime in the mud, and we forget that if we just stand out of the mud, there is a shower where we can take a good shower, be ready to face the world with it. What you are offering, Franca, is God sent for Africa. And you are not the only one. There are many across Africa.
Exactly.
Some are just news wires, others are TV screens like you do. There are many opportunities. And this is why when I said the African Union must take a leadership role. Invite all of you for a session in Addis. Sit with every press that doesn't do just domestic press, but that does international press. Sit with you all. See how we can planify a way forward where not only the challenges of Africa are put in the forefront, but also those that we can use to push Africa forward. We forget the amount of assets we have. We forget, so we take it for granted, and then we don't move anymore. I mean, when I listened earlier to the Honorable Minister speak about South Sudan and the unique attractions that he has, it is one spot of our 54 states that has so much to offer. But where does he start? Does he sit in South Sudan with all his unique selling points? Who will do to be able to get a 50-second or 30-second slot on CNN will cost the daylight out of him. We must find a way to attract these world medias to come to us. But for us to make enough noise in visibility, for us to be recognized, we need to use the mediums that we have. And you are a classic one that sits here. And I said it once on your line. I mean, there's EKG with ATQ News in Nigeria. There's Wolfgang Tome in Uganda. There are so many, but are we using it? No. And if there's an appeal that the Honorable Minister can do, let's get the African Union to invite our press that hits the international scene, not the local press that talks to South Sudan, for South Sudan, and by South Sudan. We need people that will talk to the world at large. Let's invite them for a session. Get a moderator from Africa. We don't need to bring somebody from the north. We need somebody from Africa to stand and say, this is what we need. Because this is what we need, and we must know we need it. Then we can move to the next step with a group of press people like you are, Franca, and say, now let's identify the 54 states, the unique selling points that we have. Let's take 10 per state if we want to. We'll have a book of unique selling points in Africa that we want to offer. Today, the world needs new destinations. They need new destinations that are ready to receive the discerning visitor, but also that can say, at home you are safe. So we need already, once we've identified the 54, we have 10 unique selling points per state, then say how many of these states are safe, that the client can walk down the road and feel safe. I worked on and off since February to September in Accra, in Ghana. And Ghana is a safe tourism destination. We must find a way to identify all the safe ones and use them first to attract people to our continent. Then the next step would be, once you are in Africa, discover 3-4 countries instead of one. Make the carbon usage that you are doing to fly to Africa, go the extra mile. Discover more of Africa. By so doing, we will put money in the pockets of each and every African. But this needs to happen. Otherwise, we will play in little circles and we will not be able to get the aspirations of the Honorable Minister to be met and every South Sudanese to really be delivered for them. We need to do something. And we are the ones that can do it. If the Honorable Minister of Tourism of South Sudan tomorrow makes a call, well, tomorrow is Sunday, Monday makes a call to the African Union and say, we need to invite the press of Africa to rally in Addis. It will be a massive step. And if we call amongst ourselves, we can raise a list of some 200 that'll go to. But can you imagine you let loose 200 Africans, the impact that Africa will have, what it will do on the world, but position Africa as one continent willing and ready to be and saying clearly, this is how we expect You are from the
All right, Mr. Allen. All right, Mr. Allen. I think we're having a device and it's interfering with recording. Okay. Hello, sir. Honorable. Hello, Honorable. Hello, sir. Okay,
Hello?
you are recording the conversation and it's affecting the production. Could you please stop the recording?
Okay, yeah, good.
Yeah, it's affecting the production.
Okay.
It's all right. It's okay. Mr. Allen, please go ahead.
No, what I was saying is that there are 4 of us tonight here. The Honorable Minister makes the call. African Union brings the. You are part of the press. Dr. Bashir stands there and says, you are our people. Let us work together. Let us reach Africa where it's never been. Let us showcase the unique selling points of Africa. And let us diminish the visibility of the challenges that we have. Of course we have challenges. Of course we will continue having, but we have more unique selling points than we have challenges. Except the world is of our challenges and not our unique challenges. Let us as Africans use each and every African in the diaspora. Make them our tourism ambassadors. But let African Union recognize. Let us make our people feel proud that they are from our continent and work for our continent. I think once we do that, we will be reached at a level that we will never look back. We'll keep flowing. Today, so many of the African countries are facing challenges in visitor arrival numbers. Post-COVID, challenges of wars, and now with Israel and Palestine in a new war, there'll be new challenges again. But we must find us what we have that is good, put it forward, and let the world who are looking for a continent, a country, a state, a village that is safe, that is different, that is unique, let us then find us in these whole programs that are being offered to the world. And then after that, you'll find people like you can start offering to the world packages to discover Africa. But we must get your name known first. And then the packages that you'll offer to go to South Sudan or to Ghana or to Kenya or to Uganda will come forward. That's all I'd like to say, because I am a firm believer Africa must be a continent for the future for tourism. But if we see,
all right, thank you so.
And I listened to President Obama just yesterday saying, democracy is worth fighting for. It's worth, and it'll win. But for it to win, we need to fight. Tourism can make each and every African wealthier, but we need to want to do it and move.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Allen. Dr. Bashir, I'll come to you with the diaspora advantage. Okay, but before I do that, I would like an Honorable Rizik. So add one or two things to what Mr. Allen just said about you or your office. All right, writing or taxing the African Union to call a press conference. All right, and then speak on tourism in Africa. Do you have anything to add to that, please?
Yeah, first and foremost, let me appreciate Honorable Allen, the former minister, for the great contribution that you have just registered for the welfare of the African tourism, by the way. Also, let me appreciate Dr. Bashir for the great contribution that he did. In fact, based on what Honorable Allen have just contributed, I think the gentlemen have just spoken out of experience. And for sure, him as a former Minister of Tourism would be having a lot to contribute. And in regards to our connection with the African Union, this month we are going for the African Celebrates in Addis. And I'm quite sure that will be an opportunity for us, because we'll be interacting with the African Union top leadership as well as the tourism board, the African tourism board. Everybody will be available there, and we are taking that opportunity for the welfare of our tourism. And I agree also with Honorable Allen for what he have just stated. In fact, as I have put it in my introductory notes, that now we are benefiting a lot from our East African bloc, and I do believe on our regional blocs as well as the continent. Jointly, we'll be promoting our tourism in our different perspectives, as well as I have warned about individual competition, because once we turn for promoting our single continent against the rest, for sure that will dismantle everything. That is one aspect. Second to this, we are in need of marvelous multiple supports, being infrastructures, being funding, being promotion, because I have spoken about promotion. I have spoken about the negative advisory. Many of the foreign countries, many of the overseas are talking very ill about South Sudan as insecure place. Is not a relevant or appropriate absolute place for tourism as a tourism destination. That is one of the negative advisories that we are trying to address, and I'm quite sure that today's opposite. This TV show, I'm quite sure, will contribute a lot to correspond our tourism opportunities, as well as benefit from my colleagues who are with me here in this interview. Otherwise, thank you very much, Honorable Allen, for the great contribution, for great support. This is why we are here. Thank you. I submit.
All right. You talked about wrong narratives going out of Africa, and I want to say that could be as a result of the mainstream income, because when you look at the world, you discover that journalism has become almost everyone's responsibility. The layman out there feels he is equipped to dish out information. He has a phone, he can operate the WhatsApp and the Facebook and so on and so forth. Now, Dr. Ireland also proposed that if we want to bring out the best of Africa to the world, to showcase to the world, that the press is needed, all right, to curtail these negative narratives about Africa. There are good things about Africa, not just the bad, but what we tend to hear is only the bad about Africa. And Clevenard is right there to make sure these things, the good of Africa, is shown to the world, not just to the other African countries, but also to those in diaspora. Now, the question is, how do we get media like Clevenard and Clevenard to get the attention of the African Union? All right. Now, let's look at the African Union. You just said that you're having an event, and then at the event, you might be able to bring out this issue before them. But I want to say, don't you think it will be better if you reach out to other ministers, all right, ministers of tourism in other countries, so that you can come out and speak with one voice? Because you speaking alone might not be able to affect any change, but if you all are coming together and say, this is what you want, the writing or the write-up to the African Union might make a whole lot of sense, and then implementing it might become faster. What do you say about that, please?
Yeah, that is perfect. That is perfect. And by the way, we are extending our hands and we are lending our hands to the rest of our colleagues, by the way. I'm getting in touch with many African tourism ministers, and we are connecting, and what we have realized that we are sharing the same challenges, by the way. Exactly. We are sharing more or less the same challenges, and our approach for the solution more or less looks similar. Because sometimes I was in Burundi, I have contact with ministers from Sierra Leone, ministers from West Africa. We have contact with so many ministers along these tracks, actually. But I agree with Honorable Allen. I think there is a very high need for us. Even I think this Cleveland TV, you should play an upper hand in terms of bringing us together in other meetings. You can organize a show for us. Me with the rest of our colleagues, at least for 1 hour, joining ourselves together, we'll be addressing and even we'll be familiarizing ourselves with each other. That is so perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you could be right there, but I don't know if I can totally agree with you, because if you are asking the media to play that pivotal role, we might have a whole lot of time pass by and they will not be able to achieve so many things. I think it is your ministry, all right? And as the ministry, the master, the principal of that ministry, it is your responsibility to say, African Union, we want this and this. And then to be able to get this out of Africa, we need the press, all right? So let's call for a press conference between all the stakeholders in the tourism sector. Then the media can now be invited to showcase this good aspect of the African continent. I don't know if you agree with me on that. Please, Dr. Bashir, I wanted to come in here. Honorable, I'll get back to you, please.
Yes, of course, I agree with you. And of course, the minister has also said it. The problem with Africa is the division that was instituted in that continent, years back when we were divided along some, colonial masters, and because of that, that barrier is still there. Because otherwise, in Europe, it is not by accident that they organize what we call Schengen Treaty, whereby you get one visa for a country, then you can move to many countries in Europe. It is because they know the importance of tourism. Because when somebody says, okay, I'm visiting Germany, you know that in other neighboring countries, they have other areas of interest to you. You can use the opportunity to visit those countries, and you also spread your money across all the European countries. So the same thing, I think African also, as a union, African Union, thank God we have this African Free Trade Agreement that allows free movement of people, Africans. Because I'm surprised, somebody was, telling me that, okay, for shares, I know the minister, former minister is here, that, people with Nigerian passports are not allowed to enter the country. These are the barriers we created for ourselves. We could have utilized also the potential of Africa to develop Africa by allowing free movement of people from one country to another. For example, I would have wished to visit most of these African countries, but you have to spend money on visa, or some will be hostile to you because you are carrying Nigerian passport, all those things. Then you start, hiding under other foreign nationals' passport by using your second nationality. Why do you need that? You are an African. You should be able to move from one African country to another freely as tourists, which also improves our economy. So I think free trade agreement should also apply to tourism, so that there will be that movement whereby visa-free for Africans to visit other African countries. It will improve our economy. It will improve even skills, because the minister, was, former minister, was also emphasizing the fact that we need skills. We need, people who have, required skills to develop some of the sectors that fuels the economy of any tourism. That's hotel, restaurant, all those things. So people should be able to, go freely from one country to another to improve each other. That's also, apart from that, we also need to, talk about the media. Yes, foreign media, they call it mainstream media. Why are they mainstream? They are mainstream because some of them get the support of the government of their country, to develop. They give them prominence. CNN, how did CNN become prominent? BBC, all these big, they became prominent because they had the initial support of the. So also, I think our small, we call now Clevenard, you are saying is small, but it could be also developed to become big by reaching out to the diaspora. We in the diaspora, we are also, ready to utilize the opportunity of knowing other countries. Because now, having left Africa, we are looking forward to seeing other African countries. Maybe before you left Africa, you only know your country. But I wish to visit other countries to enjoy the tourist areas there. And I believe that these are opportunities that this type of interaction will provide, because when you go to the African Union, you should table those things that visa-free for tourism. African countries should be able to move for tourism purposes to other Africans so that we can develop our economy by spreading the money that we have. And also the issue of foreign media saying negative things about Africa, which is true, because my location, I'm currently in Moscow. I know the role of negativity in some of these things, because I remember when in 2018, when many people came to Russia, to Moscow for World Cup, they were surprised to see that Russia is different from what they were being portrayed to be in the West, and that is the negative or the impact of negative this thing. So Africa is the same. Africa is also suffering from negativity. People don't want to visit us. Why? Because They are saying, oh, this will happen, this will happen. But we need to be outside there, say the positive side of what we have. Of course, I'm not saying that there's Eldorado in Africa, but there are good things also happening. And those good things must be, amplified by our own media, by our own local media, people who have the interest of Africa at heart, and not us taking our money to other countries. Trillions of dollars left Africa, either by way of tourism, or medical service or education, all those things. And these are things which, of course, if we are open to each other within Africa, we might not need to even leave the continent of Africa before we develop Africa. We might not need it. Because after all, Japan and all those countries, they closed their borders for many years. And now look at what they are. And so why Africans cannot share that common good, the common good that God has created for us amongst ourselves, and share it in such a way that people will be able to benefit from each other. Nigeria, Ghana, South Korea, South Sudan, South Africa, we should be able to move around ourselves and contribute to development of anywhere you find yourself, and that is the way it's supposed. So diasporans, where our being exposed to the world has shown us that actually we have many things that we can benefit from in Africa, that we never look at before. So this sharing of common good, we should be able to run for that and make sure that policies are driven to that direction. People who have influence, our ministers, our head of state, should put that across, that we should have free movement so that we can have benefit from each other. Countries are different. They have many countries that can share their resources with other countries by visiting as tourists, and then which is the sector we are talking about today.
Franca, can I?
All right, thank you so much.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I listened to both Dr. Bashir and the Honorable Minister. I think the Honorable Minister needs to be congratulated for one thing that he said. He is now part of the East African community. And I think if Africa works in zones, in areas where you are situated with your neighbors, so you create one. When I was in office, we created the Indian Ocean Vanilla Islands, which is all the islands of the Indian Ocean area. And we created a tourism destination that was not a country, it was 6 island states. And we managed to pitch that to the world, to operators, and we had an entry promoting Vanilla Islands. And I think what the Honorable Minister and the East African community is doing, to take our hat to him. Because what he is doing, if West Africa, Southern Africa, Eastern Africa, Central Africa did the same thing with their neighbor states, and then sooner or later, you will find 2 of these blocks that are closer to each other, working more together, and then we'll have a continent that progresses. Today, I work as a tourism consultant. Tomorrow morning, I'm flying to Egypt, where I deliver an address on tourism. Last week, I was in Bali addressing the Indonesian Tourism Summit for ASEAN states. What we need to do, and this is an advice that I give a lot in Africa. We must forget the past. We have to move forward. We have to move forward and say, how do we move to succeed? The past, yes. The French, the Portuguese, the British all drew lines across our nations and made us into small states. But this is the past. When I was in office, I took the trouble to find my roots, wanting to know how am I here in Africa as an African. And I found that I was, 5 generations ago, 2 of my great-grandmothers were slaves, and they arrived in Seychelles as slaves in chains. And I took the trouble to find even the paper that declared her a slave, a house slave, and a property slave from Mauritius. I went to find where she was. And as much as the owners of the same estate today were a bit shocked, I told them, look, I've got nothing against you. You sold my great-great-grandmother to somebody in Seychelles, but had you not done that, I would still be somewhere in Mauritius, probably cutting sugarcane. But today, look at me. 5 generations later, I was able to contest the presidential elections. 5 generations later. We need to climb on what we have It's not all the obstacles that come in to cut closed doors in our face. We need to find the openings and use them. I use mine. I never waste an opportunity given. And I'm sure if South Sudan tomorrow says to the African Union, we can bring the man from Seychelles to speak to us all as a body of ministers of tourism, you'll find that a lot of your colleagues know me anyway. I've worked with them in the past. I was in office for many years. And I sat at the CAF meeting, which is the grouping of African ministers for the UNWTO meeting. And this is in the CAF meeting that we need to bring Clevenard and other bodies of the press to firstly make that. It is the CAF meeting that will open further doors with the African Union. But we need to start somewhere. And if tonight's meeting that we are doing through and not even 60 seconds, it must be an opening. We say thank you. Thank you for opening a door that will now slide in for us to make headway. We can make it, and we should make it, but we will make it if Africa is ready to work with Africa. I remember I was in a meeting in Uganda many years ago, and I had to make the point. Africa doesn't mean you are black. It means that you are an African. And if you are an African, let us rally all the Africans together, white, black, Asian, Indian origin, and say we can be one as Africa. If we are one, we are stronger. Let us be united as one to face the world. Let the foreign press do what they want. This is their job. They will look for sensation. Let us work with our own press to find our good sides of Africa, to say that we are good. We have everything. I mean, often it's difficult, if you were Franca, to say, I am a pretty lady. It is not for you to say. Let Dr. Bashir say that you are a pretty lady, because he can admire you from another avenue. But if Africa rallies and all our African press say, we are the continent for the future. Yes, we have unique selling points. And as President Obama said in his own campaign, yes, we can do it. And we should do it. Because yes, we can.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mr. Ali. We'll come back to the role of the press as recommendations maybe at the end of this interview. But Dr. Bashir, I want you to let's explore on the role, because you have some school of thought that says that Africans in diaspora has a major role to play in developing the tourism sector of Africa. What do you say about that? And then what are your responsibilities?
Yeah, that is very right. We as a diaspora Africans, we have a lot to play because we are exposed to knowledge, we are exposed to technology, we are exposed to the resilience of some of the countries we are when they were also struggling, because some of them also went through some of the challenges Africans are facing now and thinking that it is impossible to resolve. Actually, everything is solvable. It depends on the consistency of leadership and policies and consistency in the way we pursue that goal that will make it possible. So the diasporans are exposed to all this knowledge, all the expertise that we could actually participate. But of course, what we need from the government is also an enabling environment that we allow diaspora to have some benefits. Yes, we might not be able to freely compete if we are not given the opportunity to compete, because foreign countries always create the impression that, oh, they are the only one that can do it. But we Africans in diaspora, if we are, if we unite together, we could actually do it. Mr. Allen was saying, if we do it in blocks, of course, we put blocks together, then the blocks will eventually merge as a unit together. And I think it is the same attitude here. We can freely move from one, region to the other, develop what we call the competitive advantages of some of these areas, and make it a very good one. The example is what Nigeria is doing now. Nigeria has what we call the gate of return. That's the gate of no return, where slaves were taken away from Nigeria somewhere in Badagry, Lagos. They are now creating there, we call it gate of return. So which every year we celebrate. This one is coming up in this year or October, this month, where they are also doing that, encouraging foreign Africans who are in diaspora to come in, to see benefits of what they can also contribute in terms of tourism. And some of these, I know in Ghana, something like that is also happening. And some West African countries, they are. Of course, East Africa is known for some of the tourism areas. And I believe that we can develop some of these areas together by using the diaspora experiences and resources. And also, of course, we're also exposed to knowing some of the, good investors who could invest in some of the areas, either in hotelier or also even in infrastructure, in terms of road and all those. But the other thing, like I mentioned, is the guarantee of their investment by the policies of government of those countries, where we can actually bring them in. So the diaspora role is very important, and I believe it's not only in the tourism sector, in all the sectors, even in governance. Some of the you can say Africans emerging in some of the European countries as ministers, as prime ministers. The latest one is from Canada, where you see a black man becoming the prime minister. So you can see that we are also having that experience and exposure to what the developed countries have already had, which also give us that encouragement that we can actually develop Africa by putting our hands together and being what we can call it, very, very optimistic and positive that we can do it. Yes, we can. Like, Obama said, we can in Africa also, if we put our hands together and believe that the Africa continent is all our home. We're not divided, and thank God that we're from diaspora. So it means we are also even more what we can call it the sixth region of Africa, where we can, contribute to any of the regions without thinking that, oh, I'm from Nigeria, I'm only limiting my investment in Nigeria. No, I can go to Chelsea and decide to invest there in the or South Sudan or any of those countries. But they have to give me the enabling environment by being, open to some of these things. So the role of diaspora, you cannot overemphasize it.
All right, the role of the diaspora, I'll take it to Honorable Riziksa. The role of the diasporas in promoting the tourism sector in Africa. Case study, Sudan. Okay. Hello. Okay. Go ahead, please, sir. Please unmute your microphone. Honorable, please unmute your microphone. Okay, go ahead now.
Still muted. Can't you unmute him from the...
He has to do it himself.
It's done.
Yes. Yeah. Is it okay? Yeah. In fact, there is a point which we are being shared by Dr. Bashir, which is very sensitive. In a nutshell, let me just touch it. It's about the restrictions.
Go ahead now. Please go ahead. You've muted your microphone again. All right, Mr. Allen, please, let's hear your own idea. Let's hear your own view. The role of the diaspora in building this sector in Africa.
Yes. Are you getting me now?
Yeah, Mr. Allen, please go ahead while Honorable work on his mic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Are you getting me?
Okay, I'll refer back to the importance of the diaspora. Firstly, they are African. They are African. They are Africans living in the four corners of the world. If they are part of us, they need to be recognized first. Before calling them to say, come and reinvest, come and do things for the country, let the country recognize them because they are part of the country, except living in a separate land. We need to find the list of our diaspora, recognize them, give them titles that you want, show that you recognize them, you respect them, and you care for them. Give them a mandate to do things for you. Talk to the press, spread the goodwill of the country in your key source markets for tourism, because they all live in a community. They can do little events that they have, from birthday parties of kids to bigger things, minutes and talk about their country of origin. This is spreading the word of the country, the name of the country, in small. If you did it as a upside down funnel, you're spreading it at the base, and you're really spreading the message of the country. Once this is done, invite them to the country for one of the events that we have by groups. Invite so many from each country to participate in an event in the country where they come from. Let them be part, to be firstly recognized, to be invited, and to be part of the community. A lot of them are well off in the new country of where they are staying today. Then you'll find a way to suggest to them, you can be part of a development of your country. But just to call on them all of a sudden to say, come back, bring your money and invest in the country, they will think there's something suspicious. Why would I do that? You've not cared about me for so long. Now you want me to take my money and come and invest in the country. Recognize them. Make them feel good. Make them feel part of the community. Send them a newsletter that you issue about your country. Update them on what is happening. Make them feel part and parcel of who we are. Because they are important. They can spread news about the country that nobody else can. But we have to feed them the information. But to feed them, you need to know who they are and to recognize them. I think if we all did that as Africa, imagine the number of foot soldiers Africa would have across the whole wide world. We would be amazed at what this could do for our continent. I'll let the minister, I'm sorry the minister should be talking.
Yeah, I'll need you to come in here at this point. I hope your mic is okay now, Honorable.
Yes, are you getting me clear? Am I clear now?
It's perfect now. Yeah, it's very, very clear now.
Yeah.
All right, so I would like you to contribute to what we've been discussing, the role of the diaspora, or the importance of the diasporas in building the tourism sector in Africa. I think a viable environment.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Allen said almost the same thing as well. So what should Africans be doing so that when these diasporas comes back home, they don't find the environment not conducive for them to be able to operate?
Before I could go for that, in a nutshell, I want to just highlight about a very sensitive point that it was being touched by Dr. Bashir. That is about the reservations of some countries about other countries' nationals. In fact, it may happen due to regional politics. In some other countries, that's what we are realizing. But in South Sudan, I think we believe that Africa in the near future would be a continent without boundaries between the countries, because that's why now we are coming up with these regional blocks. We are together. We are for ourselves. And you see, let me talk about South Sudan as a case study. Here we have the embassies. We have the embassies here. We have embassy in Nigeria. We have South Africa. Most of the African countries, they have embassies in South Sudan, because we believe at the end of the day they have contributed for the upcoming of South Sudan as a country. Also, we believe that they have roles to play in the development of South Sudan. One of most serious challenges, it's about the capital, the foreign capital to the country. The other one is about the expertise and experiences. You see, lack of experiences. We are looking for the expertise, and our nationals, in the diaspora. Now they are well equipped, well informed when it comes for the experience matters. They are well informed. Now we have Dr. Bashir. He's an expert of his field. He has areas to contribute for the African countries. Also, we do expect them, because one of our challenges when we talk about infrastructures, we talk about other facilities, when we talk about those matters, all of them, they need funding. As long as we are inviting foreign investors from the other continents, why don't we embrace our people, our African nationals? You see, we believe that the continent have very brilliant sons and daughters. So previously, there were issues of insecurities, issues of legal frameworks, issues of weak institutions in the continent. But I think now we are addressing them, and we need your inputs so that we improve on these demerits. You see, on our case in South Sudan, we are opening our hands to the sons and daughters, as well as the great people of Africa in the diasporas. You are welcome to your continent, and we are expecting you to contribute for the welfare of the continent. Otherwise, I believe that they have great role to play. I submit here.
All right, thank you so much. As you round up, I want us to take a look at the recommendations, okay? Dr. Honorable Allen did mention of the role of the African Union and then the press, all right, in creating the environment that each and every one of us desired. And then Honorable was saying that it is the role of the press, all right, so call for a press conference. And I don't know, I totally read it earlier, but somehow we lost that along the line. As you round up, let's look at the recommendations here. Is it the responsibility of the media to bring the tourism stakeholders together? Or should it be the responsibility of the stakeholders to bring the media together and then spread the message of the good news about Africa? So, Bashir, let's start with you, please.
Well, I believe that everybody has his own role to play. Of course, the stakeholders are the starting point. Of course, the government and the policy makers and the business, they need also to let the media know that they are needed. They are partners in progress. And if they are partners in progress, you need to reach out to them also. So the role of the media is very important, because it is what you portray yourself to be that people will take you to be, especially, and if you are competing with other places for tourism, of course they will promote their area of interest before you. So since we are Africans, and that's why we're emphasizing the media where Africans are the stakeholders. We mentioned Clevenard, there are other media outlets that we could use our opportunity of being in this media to promote our own side of the story. And so the outside of the story is how to promote investment to the tourism area and promote the tourists to our area of interest. So I believe that all of them have a role to play. So we should not say, okay, until they approach us. So I'm very happy that the Clevenard is also approaching, even though maybe they are not the one approaching you, but you are reaching out, which is the right thing to do. So you can let them know that you are there for them. You have contacted the Minister of Tourism in South Sudan. Why not come and use our outlet? We are ready to cooperate with you, to promote you, to push you forward. And I think that has to be done. And of course, it is also, we can call it patriotism, because we as Africans, we are showing our patriotism to the continent, to say, oh, even though you are not coming to me, but I'm here. I remember when we were struggling for recognition, like Mr. Allen was saying, with diasporans in Nigeria. Of course, we showed ourselves before the government said, okay, yeah, so you are here. I know when President Olusegun Obasanjo was going throughout the continent of the world, and saw a lot of Nigerians, and he was wondering, wow, so we have this type of influential people, successful people, professionals. Why don't you, engage us? We are ready to be engaged. And he created all these enabling policies. We created Nigeria diaspora policy. We created, what we call national volunteer service, and then also the Nigeria Diaspora Commission now, of course, which promotes the diaspora's engagement. And I think that's what the media also has to do. Where we have Nigerians or Africans interest in those media, we should reach out to some of these people to let them know we're there to help them. You know, of course, the other side, of course, it takes two to tango. So, and I understand that you also need them to open up to you. So, since the minister is here now, he has opened up. You have reached to you know, has gained something. It has not known that, you know, Clevenard is also a partner to work with. So that I believe it will continue like that, and many other outlets that could be beneficial, you know, to the promotion of tourism in Africa. And I think well done, I can say, for Clevenard. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Honorable Sir, the role of the press in working with the African Union in boosting this sector. Please, let's get to hear your opinion.
Yeah, thank you very much. By the way, for the press, it's very easy to bring the stakeholders together. Like now, with just one invitation letter, I have responded positively, and today I'm here. You see, that is the sensitivity and the connections of the press. But if it was being late for us, amongst us, the ministers, we have our different priorities, and we have our different programs. It's not easy to assemble many people at stake. But now we did it. You see, that is one aspect. I think the press has a very great role for us to ally after. And when we talk about when we talk about promotions of our tourism aspect, that role is basically handed over to the press. That is one aspect. In regard to the other recommendations, I'm quite sure I'm picking it up, and I will do the necessary arrangements with the African Union. That is the most appropriate recommendation. There is no any word around it. I will pick it up. Yeah.
That's a good one. Thank you so much. And Mr. Allen, let's get to hear the recommendation and also your last thought for this interview.
I salute the minister's point and the call that is, I think he's taken it, and he's in office. I used to be in office. Today I do consultancy, but he's in office and he's making a call to say yes, through the African Union, there are possibilities. I differ a bit in opinion with Dr. Bashir. Differ in the, yes, the press have a duty to move by themselves, but it takes a long time. It's like an emerging tourism destination. They need help to make the headway that they need fast. South Sudan is a new country, and they are fighting in this web of everything closes, and they have to find their way. Today, I'm so happy that he's part of the East African community, because he's taken the route that opened bigger doors for him. And congratulations again, Minister. But I believe if Clevenard had a chance to rally tourism boards or ministers of tourism together in an avenue where they are meeting anyway, they're not traveling to Clevenard. Clevenard will come to them when they meet in Addis somewhere. If that was done, can you imagine what it would be like after that? That Clevenard will have a database of all these tourism boards and ministers of tourism. They do an event like they're doing tonight. Tomorrow it falls onto their computers to say, last night we had the Minister of Sudan talking about the key USPs of Sudan, the challenges that Sudan is facing, and what can be done together. We need to help them so that they help us in due course. That's the line that I take, and I'm a firm believer. The press is our friend, but we need to help the press get a bigger recognition so they can help us. That's the line that I've always followed. And when I was in office, I had one club that was called Friends of Seychelles Press. They were invited to our annual carnival. They were invited for meetings at tourism trade fairs when they were there. They receive a newsletter every month, non-stop. They received a newsletter that told them about, from the statement that I had made, to which hotels have opened their door, which VIPs visited Seychelles. They were updated permanently. If they had a spot somewhere that they could not fill, they would take something from our newsletter and plug it in. And to become a friend of Seychelles Press, you had to have visited Seychelles and written something or something about it. And it was only approved by me and appointed by me. So that created that friends that I could travel the world. The minute I'm entering a country, I'd send a note on the Friends of Seychelles Press for that country, and I'd meet all the press in one go. It was an easy way for me to get access to people that could publicize that I'm coming. A trade fair is happening, and I'm sure the minister, the Honorable Minister, goes to London now, let's say in November. But before I would go to London for World Travel Market, I would send a note to all my friends of the press in London to say that I will be at World Travel Market. And if you have time, make it to the Seychelles stand and we'll grab a coffee or a tea or a lunch together. And you'd be amazed how they make a point to come and see me and to do an interview with me at the stand. You see, press is a funny beast. They can bite you, but they can also come and lick you. So we need to find a way that the press becomes our friend. So they're always with us. And for that, we need to care for the press. Like I said, we need to care for our members in the diaspora. We also need to care for the press. They can be our best friends, or they can be our worst enemies. Today, if you're following the war between Israel and Palestine, or Hamas, you see the two sides of the press. And I have to keep flicking through for me to understand what is happening. I go from one to the other to have a better understanding of what is happening. But if the press becomes our friends for Africa, because they are from Africa, forget the others. Let us make those that are in Africa friends of the 54 states of Africa. It will be a massive success for the continent.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Allen. And I think we've done more than an hour, and we can draw the curtain here for today, hoping that next time we'll have you guys on the studio once again to discuss more on this topical issue. Dr. Bassey, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here and also being with people of experience and minister on seat. You know, that we are ready to promote Africa. We are ready to share the experiences and share knowledge and inspiration also. Because when they hear that some of these things, other countries have gone through them, that you are not alone, you continue to push, it will be success when you continue to push. Not doing anything is what is bad, but doing something. So gathering momentum and gathering effort together as a continent, as regions, will benefit more and things will be okay for us. So I wish South Sudan all the best in its policies towards tourism and involving the diasporas in this development. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And then Honorable Rizik Zakaria, thank you for being our guest again. You can just give us a minute, last word as we round up. Just 1 minute, please.
So, thank you very much, our host, Franca. And let me also give my heartfelt thanks and appreciation for Clevenard, and also my colleagues who are being the guest for this very great TV show. In fact, this is a very key opportunity for us to share and get introduced to you, as well as sharing with you some of our opportunities here on the ground and some of the challenges which we have really benefited from my colleagues, the former minister, the former senior minister, Mr. Allen, and our colleague, the Diaspora, Dr. Bashir. And we're here to join our hands to promote African tourism. And please, mind you, if you have any concern related to South Sudan or African tourism, we are available at your reach anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Allen,
I submit.
the last word, please, in just a minute.
Thank you very much, Franca. Thank you, Dr. Bashir and Minister Rizik. I think if I take the words of President Ruto of Kenya, because you are the East African community, when he addressed that big conference in Nairobi recently, he said, what we're doing today is having a dialogue. We're starting a conversation. We need to use Clevenard and continue the dialogue, continue the conversation, and let tourism shine for Africa. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. And the audience, that's our package for today. Till next time, we will come your way with another breathtaking conversation on this program. I remain Frank and Idemudia. Do have a blessed evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.